and then we'll give time for some questions, but also a little experiment that I'd like to do with you. Most of you were quite taken with the quotation from John Keats. And just a couple of things I wanted to say about that. Also, the words that he uses, to school an intelligence and make it a soul. I suppose many people, many theosophists, are more comfortable with the idea of a causal body, which I think is a nonsensical idea anyway, so I don't use it. I'm very heretical when I think about some of these things, because it's, first of all, it's not a body, and secondly, it's not the seat of causation. So it's quite wrong to call it that in many respects. With all due regard to my predecessors who were wonderful theosophists, so you can throw me out anytime you want to. But anyway, the term soul really has to do with that central focus which is present in universal consciousness. The focus which is known in the secret doctrine as ahamkara, a term that you may or may not be familiar with. Within the universal consciousness,
excuse me,
you
Joy.
ready to get into this?
Joy, your microphone isn't on at the moment.
It's on.
We can't hear any.
It's on. I don't know what's happened to it, but it's on.
Amplifier in the room.
Maybe the battery's gone, but anyway, it's on. It's red. Everybody can see this red button there.
There's an amplifier in the storeroom.
It's definitely in consciousness mode.
All right, it's on. Ahamkara. I'm not going to give you lessons in Sanskrit. You can get those somewhere. You know, this is a cheap seminar. It doesn't include lessons in Sanskrit. So anyway, get that for another.
Do you want to
class.
make that M a little bit more, just in case?
Yes, that's an M.
That's M for mummy.
Aham, 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 kara. I'll give you a brief lesson. Anyway, if you don't believe me, read the secret doctrine. I mean, I don't know why I have to interpret it for you, but there it is. The first sort of focus is a tendency within universal consciousness to come to a point. Let me put it that way. This is a tendency to come to a point. Consequently, there can be, because a point is dimensionless, isn't it? Everyone agrees? Therefore, there can be an infinite number of points. Therefore, its nature is to focus. And that focus is known as ahamkara, from which manas is derived, incidentally, ultimately, and so on. You read all of this in the secret doctrine. Aham is, in one sense, the very sound that your breathing makes. And it has to do with that focus which is known as I. Generally, this is just translated as the eye-making faculty. That's the simplest. It's an action of pulsation that focuses, so that it is said, for example, in one of the great Upanishads, I can't remember which one right now, there are only 108 of them, so you can look it up, 108 major ones. sound of our breathing constantly repeats, I am that am I. Soham, aham, soham, soham. The very sound of our breathing repeats, enunciates, articulates that you are that. Atman is Brahman, if you like. But the very sound of our breathing tells us, I am that am I. This is the mystery of it. And this kara, from the root verb kri, which simply means action, and from which we have karma, and we have all kinds of other words, is the very act of breathing, awakens the dormant consciousness. Remember Alice in Wonderland? Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Tweedledum and Tweedledee, of course, are aspects of Manas. We think of them as higher and lower aspects. You know, one's above the other and so on. So we're climbing up the ladder to higher Manas and so on. But they're just two aspects, two ways in which Manas functions, Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And they're walking with Alice and they come on the Red Queen. Remember? And the Red Queen is doing what? She's snoring. Caught snoring. Yes. And of course, Tweedledum. That is the mystery of the whole system, is asleep until we wake it up. The whole system is asleep. So this is the function of the human being. It's to wake it up. And of course, Tweedledum and Tweedledee say to Alice, don't wake her. You're only a thing in her dream. Wonderful, isn't it? So, we are to wake it up. So, the soul, started out with the soul, is indeed at this central point where we are now becoming conscious, waking up the whole universal mind. We are waking up universal consciousness. And so we are making a soul. Now it's rather interesting that Keats uses the term to school an intelligence, which is what we are. We think of school as, you know, a place where we're going to learn everything and discipline and rules and regulations and so on. You may know that the Latin word schola, S-C-H-O-L-A, schola, really originally meant leisure. And it's related to the Latin word ludens, which meant game or play. So this is the play. This is the playground. This whole creative process is a lila in the Hindu mythology. It's a playground. I don't know why we're not having fun. We ought to have fun. And this is where you know, this is why you're here on a Saturday, because this is where you spend your leisure time. You think how far we have come from that wonderful word, schola, as the opportunity, the leisure to enjoy ourselves. So we are schooling an intelligence. We're schooling the creative logos, which each one of us is, and therefore making it a soul, a center of consciousness through which we can extend ourselves to the totality of being, the totality of life. So I thought I should add that little bit.
It's very interesting the way that instead of the intelligence, to school and intelligence.
And intelligence, yes, it is, Gavin. It's school and intelligence. Make it a soul. We're in the business of soul making. That's our business. That's our dharma. That's our responsibility. Now, other systems have failed, but let's hope we don't.
Is it not the business of soul developing?
Pardon?
Is it not the business of soul developing?
We're in the business of
Soul developing.
soul developing, yes, you can put it that way.
Not making.
Yeah, all right, soul developing. But making, because it's karma, it's action. It's action, you see. Karma, kari, which is, that's the other sound, which is not that's one of the 14 vowels of Sanskrit, incidentally. It's not a consonant. And so this is the lawfulness of the whole system you can look at. So we're involved in these three streams of evolution. One other thing I want to point out, the third fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine, HPB tells us that the pivotal doctrine of the esoteric philosophy, we ought to pay attention when she says pivotal doctrine, the pivotal doctrine of the esoteric philosophy admits no special gifts in man, in the human being, save those won by his own effort and merit. So we've got work to do. We've got to do it ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. Throughout a long series of metempsychoses and reincarnations. Now notice the word she uses first is metempsychosis, because what has to occur is a transformation in consciousness. This is what our international president is talking about, Rhoda Bernier. Regeneration. I use the term transformation. You use the Greek term metempsychosis. It's the same thing. Rhoda and I are talking about the same thing, just in different ways. And so, reincarnation is subsidiary. We'll go into that sometime this weekend, maybe. Maybe we won't. It's a little boring, in one sense, because we look at reincarnation from down here, how many lives and how much time between lives and all the other nonsense. There's only one life. It dips down occasionally, like taking a meal, like going for tea breaks, and so on, that sort of thing. But what is important is metempsychosis. Maybe I could put it this way. Might as well give you another little chart. Now that I have more pens up here, pens are for use. Now, we get born, what is the process? Call it aging if you like, and call it anything you want to. The process is constant change. Constant change. Physically, I'm talking about. Physical, etheric. This is the physical, etheric, if you like. And the process is transmigration. Oh, I know we all say we don't believe in transmigration. Well, you'd better believe in it. It's happening all the time. HPB wrote an article called The Transmigration of Life Atoms. So she knew what she was talking about. Even if we don't always know what we're talking about, she did. So this is what's going on all the time. We're sitting in each other's protoplasmic soup. And we're all the time exchanging cellular structure, bioelectric magnetic, isn't that right? We're all the time in exchange. The whole principle of the universe, incidentally, the whole principle on which it's based is known as yajna. An exchange, a tremendous exchange, is all the time taking place. Isn't that wonderful? And so we're all the time in exchange. And so there's a transmigration of what HPB called the life atoms. Cells are dying and being born, aren't they? There's all the time, at the physioetheric level, this constant exchange with the atmosphere. So if you're going to pollute the atmosphere, you're polluting your own body, aren't you? We're breathing in and breathing out all of the pollutants that we have thrown into the atmosphere ourselves. Is that right, Tarleton?
Yes.
So, this is why we like to plant trees, green spaces, so that we can breathe. Because we can scarcely breathe anymore. This is what's happening, isn't it? Transmigration. Now, there is also another kind of movement, and I'm just going to put it like so. All diagrams are limited, but this is the only way I know which to do it. In which the psyche is moving constantly from this kind of platform on which we stand. This is our abode, bodig, body. The word body from the Anglo-Saxon word bodig, the abiding place. This is why in Sanskrit it's called Purusha, the being in a city. This is the city in which we dwell. This body it's a kind of city. It sometimes gets overcrowded. You know, it does. When you have indigestion, it's simply the overcrowding of the city. Is that right? And so on. So all of this, it's the city, it's the bodhi, it's your dwelling place. But we're all the time moving to a realm of self-reflection, of self-consciousness, where we're really focused. So I will use our old familiar friend, Manas. That's the simplest way to put it. Manas. And this process, which is all the time going on, we call reincarnation. But it's constantly going on, just as transmigration is constantly going on. It's all the time going on. you the same person you were 20 years ago? I hope not. You'll look in the mirror and you know you're not. All right. 50 years ago, whatever it is, you know. And yet something continues. What continues? Oh, you like Sanskrit, don't you? I noticed everybody relaxed when I started in. So what continues are the skandhas. If you don't know what that is, look it up. There's a little nice passage about it in the Key to Theosophy, and several of it, in the Mahatma letters. Letter number 68, chronologically, tells you about the skandhas. But HPB in the Key to Theosophy tells you about the skandhas too. So, you know, they're there. So anyway. So this is that process. Constantly going on. Constantly going on. But here is the central part of the process, which is metempsychosis. And notice HPB says throughout a long series of metempsychoses and reincarnations. She doesn't give reincarnation first. That's subsidiary. What is important is this transformation at this level. Transformation of consciousness, of the mind. That's what we're about. So, they're wonderful stories. Many myths deal with metempsychosis. Many, many myths deal with it. Of this transformation that has to take place. You can go on reincarnating from now till Dog's Day, you know. Ad infinitum ad nauseam. But unless there is that interior change of the total psychic structure, the total structure of manas, nothing much will have happened. This is why in the Mahatma letters, egos perish by the thousands or millions or whatever it is, you know, because they just keep coming in and going out like night flies sort of thing, you know, fireflies, coming on and off and on and off and on and off, until we wake up and join the Theosophical Society, and then we've got it made. You know, now we're on our way. Now we have to awaken from the highest, as it were, a new being. This is the creating of the soul. And so here the process, this awakening through the energy we call buddhi, brings about what in Greek is called metanoia. Another word that is really very important. Noia from the Greek word nous. Greeks had many different words for mind. We've got one lousy word, mind. But nous. We have the word noetic. You ever heard noetic? Which means what? To know with the totality of our being. And so, St. Paul, we were talking about St. Paul. Oh, Jack. Yes, Jack was talking about St. Paul. Jack's done this wonderful work, Christianity. St. Paul. HPB said he was an initiate, didn't he? Yes. So St. Paul wrote to the Romans, except ye be converted in your mind. The very first verse of the Romans. This conversion, turning on a central pin, and the central pin is the focus of manas. That focus there, except you be converted in your mind and become as what? Little children. The child, to bring to birth within the human soul the Christ child. To become a little child. The innocence, the purity, the beauty, the wonder. This is metanoia. So from metempsychosis, now a new mind is given to us. The mind of the Buddha, awake. And so then can bring down the universal, however you want to call it. This is enlightenment, if you like. There's the process then. There's the whole process. Does that begin to open up new doors of understanding? We see it now in a new way. Incidentally, and I failed to get the exact reference, but HPB speaks of 7 modes of thought in the Secret Doctrine. If you want the exact reference, I'll have to look it up. I guess there's the Secret Doctrine somewhere around here. And I'll look it up for you, but meanwhile you can look it up yourselves. She speaks of 7 modes of thought. She names only 3 of them. And they all have to do with manas. She calls them the realistic, the idealistic, and the spiritual. And then she says the other 4 modes are so far beyond human comprehension that no names can be given to them. So we're left there. But realistic, clear vision. Realistic. What is real? When we say from the unreal, lead me to the real. What is real? The no-thingness at the center. So what is that clear vision through yoga, meditation, so on, all the techniques? Idealistic. And HPB spoke to her students, as reported by one of them, Commander Bowen. Many of you are probably familiar with the famous Bowen Notes. Of the need at every stage to create an image of the idea. And once you have filled it with life and with energy, force, power, then to destroy it, and a new idea takes its place until you come to the image-less. But we start with the images, and that's one thing we're going to be working on. I haven't even told you what you're going to be doing this weekend. I thought I'd wait until maybe this afternoon. Spring it on you. So the idealistic, we could call it the archetypal, but the image making. This is, we all have this ability to make images, the ideal. And then finally the spiritual, which is true illumination, which is the result, perhaps, the consequence of metanoia, of the new mind that comes to birth, which then we now look, as HPB put it, we look with the eyes of the spirit, a on the things that matter. To quote HPB. So there we have the whole process, a marvelous process. So at what level are we knowing? I meant to read you a nice little statement from a book called White Bears by Daniel Wegner, because I think it's a marvelous statement. He wrote, "Just because we have minds doesn't mean we know how to operate them. We get this marvelous high-tech instrument on our birthday, and there are no instructions. We spend our whole lives trying to figure out how our mind works. Some capacities we never discover, other abilities we learn about and use them repeatedly. Other tricks we know about but can't make happen when we want them." So I think that's a pretty good description of manas. There it is. Incidentally, as you know, if you study the secret doctrine, the awakening of manas was the gift of a tremendous hierarchy that preceded ours. In one sense, you see, we as human beings are made-up jobs. We are composed of the work bequeathed to us of several previous hierarchies, all contributing to the formation of what we call the human being. The etheric, the mold body, the gift of a preceding chain, planetary cycle. The lunar Petries, the Agnisvata Petries, and given some 27 different names in the secret doctrine. You've got to keep track of who they are, because HPB keeps giving different names to them. The higher faculties awakened by the solar laws, solar countries. I'm sorry, they're the Agnisvata, the lower ones are the Bhaktashads, those who sat near the fire. The Agnisvatas, those who were warmed by the fire, who tasted the fire, and so on.